Subscribe to my YouTube channel before we begin, because this story will touch your heart and stay with you forever. It was one of those cold winter evenings where the city looked like a giant painting. Golden lights glowing behind every window, streets busy with honking cars, and people rushing home with their coats tightly wrapped. But among all this rush, there was one girl who wasn't rushing anywhere, standing quietly at the corner of a coffee shop, with her second-hand coat a little too thin for the icy wind, was Emma! A simple poor girl, whose heart was heavier than the bag she carried. Emma worked double shifts every day, cleaning, offices in the mornings, and waiting tables at night, just to survive in the fast-paced city. Yet, the thing that burdened her the most wasn't poverty, it was missing someone she loved more than words could ever describe. Every day she would walk past the places they used to visit, every street carrying echoes of laughter and memories that haunted her. No one really noticed her pain, because she had learned to hide it behind tired smiles. But fate, as strange as it is, was about to bring her face to face with someone who had the power to change lives overnight. The city's most untouchable billionaire, Mr. Lucas Grant, a man whose name alone made headlines, whose businesses stretched across countries, and whose fortune could buy everything money could touch. Yet no one really knew much about his personal life. All the city knew was that Lucas Grant was powerful, cold, and impossible to approach. That evening, Lucas wasn't supposed to be at that coffee shop. Billionaires don't just walk into small corner cafes without security, but there he was, sitting silently by the window, dressed in a simple black coat, staring outside as if searching for something he had lost long ago. Emma noticed him the moment he walked in, but she never imagined she would dare to speak to him. After all, what could a poor girl like her possibly have to say to the city's most unreachable man? Yet, as the hours passed and the coffee shop began to empty, Emma's eyes kept returning to him. Maybe it was the sadness in his eyes that mirrored her own, or maybe it was the quiet way he sat there, untouched by the noise around him. Her heart beat faster as an unusual courage took over, and before she could overthink it, she found herself walking up to his table. Lucas didn't even look up at first, assuming it was just another waitress, but when Emma's soft voice broke the silence, he finally met her eyes. There was a long pause. Emma's throat tightened, but somehow she whispered the words that had been living inside her chest for far too long. "Excuse me, sir," she said nervously. Do you know if there's a cure for missing someone?" The entire room seemed to freeze. Lucas blinked, caught off guard. For a billionaire who had heard every kind of business pitch, compliment, and request, this was something he wasn't prepared for. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Emma immediately regretted asking. She turned to leave, but Lucas's calm voice stopped her. "Sit," he said quietly. Emma hesitated. Was she in trouble? Was he angry? But something about his voice sounded different. Not like the Lucas Grant the newspapers described. Slowly, she sat down across from him, her hand shaking slightly. Lucas leaned back in his chair, studying her face for a moment. His eyes were sharp, yet gentle, as if he had lived the question Emma just asked. "You're the first person," he said slowly, "who has asked me something real in a very long time." Emma's heart pounded. She didn't know if it was fear or curiosity. What was he about to say? The billionaire could have just ignored her, could have told her it was none of his business. But instead, he leaned forward and whispered something that made Emma's eyes widen. But just as Lucas was about to speak, the door of the coffee shop suddenly slammed open and two men in black suits entered, scanning the room urgently. Emma recognized them immediately. Lucas's personal security. Lucas's expression changed instantly. He stood up and without another word, left Emma sitting there, frozen, confused, and desperate to know what he was about to reveal. What was Lucas about to tell her? Why did her simple question shake the billionaire? And more importantly, was there really a cure for missing someone? You won't believe what happens when Emma meets Lucas again. The next few days passed like a blur for Emma. Every time she wiped down the tables, took orders, or walked home through the crowded streets, her mind replayed that short, strange conversation with Lucas Grant. She kept hearing his voice, calm, curious, almost broken. His words kept ringing in her ears. "You're the first person who has asked me something real in a very long time." But before she could make sense of it, he disappeared like smoke, leaving her with more questions than answers. Emma tried to convince herself it was nothing, just a weird encounter with someone way out of her league. She told herself he probably didn't even remember her. But deep inside, she knew something about that moment was different. Not just for her, but for him too. He wasn't just any customer that night. There was something in his eyes, something tired, lonely, and familiar. 2 days later, as Emma stepped out of the coffee shop late at night, she found a black car parked quietly near the sidewalk. Before she could even react, the window rolled down, and Lucas was sitting inside, alone. He wasn't dressed like a billionaire tonight, just in a plain grey sweater and jeans, like any other man. Without waiting for her permission, Lucas stepped out and walked towards her. "I owe you an answer," he said, looking directly into her eyes. Emma froze. She didn't know if she should run, cry, or stay. Lucas gestured towards a quiet bench nearby. Hesitantly, Emma followed, her heart pounding so loudly she could almost hear it. They sat under a dim streetlight, the cold air making Emma shiver. Lucas didn't speak for a while. His eyes were fixed on the empty street ahead, as if searching for the right words. Then, he sighed heavily. "When you asked me about missing someone, you reminded me of something I've been avoiding for years," he confessed. "I lost someone, too. The only person who ever mattered to me." Emma's throat tightened. For a man like him to admit something so personal to someone like her was unexpected. Lucas went on, revealing how he had once loved a woman who never cared about his wealth or power, only him. But in his obsession with building his empire, he lost her. Not because of betrayal, but because he was too busy chasing everything but her. "She left without saying goodbye," he whispered, "and I've never seen her again." Emma listened quietly, but every word felt like a mirror to her own story. She too was missing someone. A mother who had left when she was young, a father who had given up, and a brother who had disappeared into the streets after a terrible fight. Emma's world was filled with people who left without a trace. Lucas suddenly turned to Emma. You seem like you've lost someone too." His words were soft but sharp, as if he could see straight through her. Emma's eyes welled up, but she quickly wiped them before the tears could fall. They sat there, two strangers, both wounded by loss, both pretending to be fine in a world that never stopped moving. But as they shared their stories, there was a silent understanding between them. No matter how rich or poor, loss felt the same. Over the next few weeks, Lucas kept returning to the coffee shop, always sitting at the same corner table, always alone, until Emma would eventually join him. They never planned these meetings, yet they happened naturally. And every time they talked, Emma noticed a different side of Lucas. He wasn't the cold billionaire people thought he was. He was human, broken, kind, and searching for something no amount of money could buy. But behind all these quiet meetings, Something darker was brewing. Emma had no idea that people were watching. Lucas's sudden visits to a small coffee shop hadn't gone unnoticed. His company's board members, desperate to control him, had begun digging into Emma's life, suspicious of her. Emma's landlord suddenly increased her rent. The coffee shop manager hinted at letting her go. It was as if the world was slowly pushing her away, making her life harder without explanation. Emma didn't know who was behind it, but Lucas knew. He just hadn't told her yet. One evening, as Emma arrived home, exhausted and frustrated, she found an eviction notice pinned to her door. Tears filled her eyes. How could things get worse? But just as she crumpled to the floor, Lucas was already there, standing at the end of the hallway, watching quietly. Without a word, he walked towards her and gently helped her up. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "This is because of me." Emma stared at him, confused and scared. "What do you mean?" she asked. Lucas clenched his jaw. "They think you're a threat to me, to my position. They don't want me to be distracted." Emma's stomach sank. Was she just a distraction? Was everything between them just a billionaire's temporary escape? Or was it something more? But before she could demand answers, Lucas's phone rang. He answered, and Emma could hear the panic on the other end. Something serious was happening. Lucas's eyes darkened as he ended the call. Without even looking at her, he whispered, "I have to go," and just like that, he disappeared again. Emma was left standing alone, holding on to questions that were too heavy for her to carry. Was Lucas protecting her? Or was she just another thing he'd eventually walk away from? But deep down, both Emma and Lucas didn't realize. Destiny had only just started pulling its strings. For days, Emma didn't hear from Lucas. She tried to convince herself it was for the best. After all, they came from two different worlds. But deep down, the silence felt heavier than ever. The coffee shop felt emptier, the streets colder, and her small apartment lonelier. She stared at the eviction notice still pinned on the wall, feeling like her entire life was crumbling piece by piece. Then, late one rainy evening, as Emma walked home with her head down, Lucas stood waiting near her apartment building, completely soaked. His eyes held a mixture of guilt, fear, and desperation. Without thinking, Emma ran to him. "Where have you been?" she asked, voice trembling. Lucas took her hands. "I was protecting you," he said, his voice cracking. "My board, they threatened you. They tried to scare you away. I thought if I stayed away, you'd be safe." Emma's heart sank. "You thought leaving me would protect me? You didn't even give me a choice." Lucas lowered his head, ashamed. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." He looked into her eyes. "But it's over now. I stepped down from my position today. I gave it all up." Emma blinked, confused. "You stepped down? You left your company?" Lucas nodded. "It wasn't worth it. Not if it meant hurting you." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "Emma, meeting you was the first time in years I felt real. Not like some billionaire on the cover of magazines. Not like a puppet controlled by power-hungry people. Just me." Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Lucas Grant, the man everyone feared and admired, had given up his empire for her. Before Emma could speak, Lucas handed her an envelope. Inside was the official resignation letter, but also something else. A small locket. She opened it, and inside was a picture of a woman Emma recognized instantly. It was the same woman from the old photograph Emma had kept of her mother. Her breath caught. "Why do you have this?" she whispered. Lucas swallowed hard. "Because she was the woman I loved, years ago. Your mother, Emma." Emma's legs gave out, and Lucas caught her just in time. Tears streamed down her face. My mother. You knew her, she gasped. Lucas nodded. She left because she was protecting you. There were threats back then. People trying to control me even before I became who I am. She thought staying would put you in danger, so she disappeared. I tried to find her. I failed. His voice broke. I didn't know you were her daughter until I saw your photo the night we first met. That's why I froze. That's why I kept coming back. Emma's world spun. The pieces finally fit together. The longing in Lucas's eyes. The way he always looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. He wasn't just someone who lost a lover. He had lost a family. Emma broke down, sobbing into his chest. Lucas held her tightly, as if afraid she'd vanish too. In the weeks that followed, Emma and Lucas slowly rebuilt their bond. Lucas helped Emma find her brother, who was living quietly in another city, having also suffered the loss silently all these years. The three of them reunited, healing together. As for Lucas, he started a foundation to help lost children and struggling families, dedicating it in memory of Emma's mother. He didn't need billions to make an impact anymore. Emma stood by his side, not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who had found herself again. Their story became one of second chances, healing, and the kind of love that wasn't about power or wealth, but about finally finding home in each other. And as they stood together at the opening of the Foundation's first shelter, Emma whispered, "Thank you for not giving up." Lucas smiled softly, replying, "I should be thanking you. You gave me something money could never buy, family, and this time, neither of them ever walked away.